Chapter 18. After Flora and I had won our first swimming medals, we felt that we were headed for the World Championships. As for Duddlebug, she was still doing most of her splashing in the bathtub. Had I envisioned what a devastating effect she was to have on my swimming career, I would have thrown her out with the bathwater. Seward Park Bathing Beach became the center of our summer activities. Flora and I attended Mr. Resseberg's classes every Wednesday morning, and he involved us in demonstrating the different strokes. Being inclined to show off, we enjoyed the prestige. Now watch this girl do the crawl stroke. We would oblige with our best form, and then stand nonchalantly by, hitching up our shoulder straps or stretching our swim caps at the ears to let the water out. Mr. Resseberg explained, "Did you see how she kept her knees straight and pointed her toes? Swim in once more, Frances." Besides the lessons on Wednesday, we attended team training sessions which the beach manager held every morning, rain or shine. We'd walk down the steep hill, carrying our lunch, and hoping that Mama would drive down and pick us up in the afternoon. If she even suggested that we walk home, we reminded her of the dangers of the Seward Park pen that she and Mary Bird discussed. "Do you want us to get raped?" "Yeah, after swimming we wouldn't have enough energy to run. Yeah, we'd just have to lay down and give in." With such possibilities, Mama picked us up almost without fail. Poor Mama, we didn't make it easy for her. When she came down at 3 o'clock, we were on the raft, hard at play. At the first blast of her horn, we would ignore her and try to induce everyone into the deception. Before long, the message was being called out from the guard boat. "Will the Bigham girls please leave the raft? Their mother is honking." Being on the team, we were allowed special privileges. That's what the manager called doing chores, involving such things as picking up candy wrappers, hosing off the walks, and laundering the clothes bags. The reward for all of this was getting to use the clothes bags for free. We would spend the nickel they normally cost on candy at the concession stand. It was after one of those sessions that Mama discovered a new mystery, comparable to the red wrist mystery. Our whole hands, and sometimes halfway up to our elbows, were red and sore. "Now what?" Mama sighed. I began to explain. "It's 'cause when we put the bags into—" Flora put her hand over my mouth and said, "It's nothing." Later, she said that if Mama knew about us doing special privileges, she might think it was not ladylike, and if Papa knew, he would stop paying us the nickel. Mama discussed our red hands with Papa. Franny said something about bags. Mama was busy with her needle and thread, making adjustments to our new swimsuits. She probably meant the bags they store their clothes in at the bathhouse. Mama detested those bags. Even if the girls put their clothes in neatly, after the bags hang from a hook all day, the clothes are wrinkled anyway. She paused, deep in thought. "And they smell to high heaven of pine oil disinfectant, but what? Guess you'll have to start playing detective again." Papa went back to studying his briefs. Mama turned back to the work at hand. She was sewing the big S on our swimsuits, getting everything in order for the swimming races that were coming up. Our first suits had been cotton, like girls wear in California. As we spent more time at the beach, Mama subscribed to the theory that girls who sat around in wet cotton suits developed female problems. That might not be true in California, where it's always warm, but in Seattle, it's certainly a possibility, she reasoned. After that, our suits had to be 100% wool, which was a good deal more costly. Papa didn't object to the added cost, and actually admitted that, although he was no expert on female problems, it stood to reason that wool kept us warmer. The problem was, it shrunk. Papa had the solution, of course. "Tenny, you've just got to buy their suits one size bigger." "But Roy, the girls like to have their suits fit." "Yeah, we don't want them dragging around our ankles." "Then pass them down from one to the other. Flora uses it the first year, then Franny, and then Dor." Florence and I were the same size, so that eliminated passing on there. Dorothy, on the other hand, was about 4 sizes down the line. Before suits got to her, the moths got to the suits. They were a real problem, these little rascals. One year their work was so devastating on Papa's gray suit that Papa referred to it as the G-string murder. Mama got out her mending basket, but Papa scoffed. "Mama, there are certain areas of my anatomy on which I don't care to display your handiwork." I don't remember Mama mending it, but she must have, because to my knowledge, Papa never bought another suit. At the culmination of the swimming season, we had to qualify for the 2 big races, in which participants from Seattle's 10 municipal beaches competed. The PI races were sponsored by the Seattle Post-Intelligencer in cooperation with the Board of Park Commissioners and were held at Madrona Bathing Beach. The 26 events ranged from the dead man's float for 5 and 6-year-olds, through dog paddle, side stroke, backstroke, underwater distance, and freestyle, which we called the crawl stroke. Similar races were held 2 weeks later at East Green Lake Beach by the Seattle Star. Our name was often printed in the sports section and often caused confusion. Our first names were regularly interchanged and misspelled. Flora was credited with winning my races, and vice versa. "What is so hard about spelling a simple name like Bigham?" we moaned. All of that was a piece of cake compared to the disruptions in my life after Dor began entering the races. From the day she was born prematurely, she was always ready with a challenge. While shopping, she would say to Flora or me, "I'll race you to the car." Papa told us, "If you're smart, you'll notice that she's all set to go, has probably figured out a shortcut, and make sure that you're carrying the heaviest bundles." Flora was smart and ignored Dor's challenges, but I usually fell for them. I usually lost because I wasn't set to go, hadn't figured out a shortcut, and was carrying the heaviest bundles. The trouble began with my first star race. By some accident, Dor's name had appeared on the entry list next to mine. Our coach told Mama, "Let her swim anyway." Mama was concerned. "She's too young to be in the star races. What if she can't make it all the way?" "Don't worry, the experience will do her good." Dor was in need of experience. A good experience. She had already had a bad experience 2 weeks earlier, in her first ever race. She had lost. She was crying when she left the water. She cried at the award presentation, and she cried all the way home. Papa tried to bottle her up with his stock consolation. "If you're going to compete, you've got to learn to lose." With that prospect, Dorothy cried even worse. What made her defeat such a disaster was that, before the fact, she had been tagged to win. This was a perpetual problem. Her small, fragile frame, fluffy blonde hair, and wide, innocent eyes always drew attention. "Look at that cute little girl." When they saw her fierce determination, they added, "I'll bet she can beat all the big kids." Papa had given me the option at the star race. Did I want Dor to go with me? I had shrugged. What's the difference? What could possibly happen? Of course she would lose, and we would have to put up with her crying, but we were used to that. So Dor and I headed for the starting raft as Mama gave me the usual instructions. "Now, Franny, I am putting Dorothy in your care." Among us big, husky girls jostling for position on the raft, Dor looked like the drip from a leaky faucet. She had just inherited my suit from last year, which was hanging down to her knees. She hung on to me as if the death angel would be descending any minute. I paid little attention. To me, racing had become a life-and-death proposition, and according to the know-it-alls of the beaches, I had a good chance to win. The gun sounded, and I got a terrific start, paddling as fast as my arms and legs could go. Water was exploding all around me. I was in the lead. "Paddle hard," I kept telling myself. "You can do it." I could picture the upcoming awards ceremony. And now we have the winner of the dog paddle. What a race. What a fight for the finish. And here she is, the great Frances Bigham. Suddenly, calamity struck. From the rear, I heard Dor's frantic voice. "Franny, I'm drowning." I couldn't believe my ears. I took another stroke, but heard it again. In my mind, Mama's speech about responsibilities was replaying. Without losing a stroke, I turned back, bumping into all the oncoming swimmers who, if the cards had been stacked differently, could never have hoped for more than a second-place finish. I headed for the little splash in the rear. I still might have had a moment of glory after all. The headlines could read, "Frances Bigham sacrifices first-place finish to save little sister." But just as I came to Dor's side, a lifeguard in a rowboat zipped by, plucked her out of the water, and carried her to shore. Oh, such agony. But there was more to come. Not only had I lost the race, but I became known as the spoiler. Every other girl in the race, backed up by her mother, upbraided me. If you hadn't turned around and bumped into me, I would have won the race. Papa tried to get an explanation from Dorothy, but to no avail. We all knew that Dorothy's worst nightmare was to bring up the rear. The only positive was that Mama said, "Franny, you would have won." One area that Dor didn't cause me problems in was high diving. Why she never took to it, I don't know. Why I did, I don't know. It seems strange being as accident-prone and afraid of high places as I was. Papa had been our first diving teacher, but he was hardly more successful than he had been with our swimming. We were on the raft at Seward Park. He had on his gray wool suit with the orange stripe around the middle. First thing is to get in the right position. Watch. He bent his body into the shape of a letter S, and when things seemed right, He leaped into the water, making a spectacular splash. We were impressed. If a big splash was what it was all about, he was a great success. We line up, trying to imitate his stance. He clapped, we leaped in. He grumbled, "Those were belly flops." Some young whippersnappers sitting nearby offered suggestions. "Throw their legs up when they begin to fall." Papa reluctantly followed their suggestions, but his efforts were too vigorous, and he threw us onto our backs. "Not so hard," the boys said. Papa was annoyed. "If you're so damn smart, let's see how well you can dive." This was apparently what the boys were waiting for. They began leaping off the raft like penguins. One tall, suntanned boy in a red suit started up the steps to the diving tower. When he got to the top platform, 24 feet as I learned later, he climbed up onto the railing, adding another 3 feet. Taking a tall, erect stance, not at all like Papa's, he fell gracefully forward into a beautiful dive. When he hit the water, there was hardly a splash. I decided right then that someday I would do that too. My goal was a long time in materializing. I had to learn to dive well from 8 and 16-foot boards. One day, I made it all the way to the top. I stood looking down. The water seemed 100 miles away. I had that same ugly feeling I'd had when Dora and I walked on the roof. The desire was so strong. A high dive would prove that I could do something that no one else in the Bigham family could do. In fact, I would be able to do something that no other girl at Seward Park could do, and very few boys. If only an angel would come and push me off. But no angel came, and I finally had to retreat down the ladder. This might have gone on forever, but one day, the boy in the red suit followed me up. "Don't think about how you're going to hit the water. You know how to dive. Just relax and fall forward." I made my first dive that day. Papa was proud of my high diving, but Mama was worried that I would get female problems. Papa enjoyed baiting Mama's fears. While driving over a bridge, he would say, "Fran, I'll stop the car and let you dive off from here." Of course, he never did, but I like to think that he knew I could. After Dora's first races, Mama allowed her to go to the beach with Flora and me. It wasn't long before she began having red hands, too. Mama was more puzzled than ever, and reminded Flora and me that she was our responsibility. Dora whispered, "It serves her right for not sneaking up on us when we're doing our special privileges."